I fell into the technology world, really. It was something that I'd always been interested in. My dad was a real techie, and as a kid we had one of the very first tape recorders, and this was incredibly exciting, and my friends and I used to record our voices, and it was quite interesting because when I think back to that time, we had that before we were allowed to have a record player. So in a sense we were sort of like making before we were consuming tech. But it was really when I started work on Tomorrow's World that I had a real understanding of just how broad the world of technology was, and how many different options there were within it, and how very much I enjoyed being part of it. And I think this is something which is very relevant today, because so many of the opportunities in technology are completely invisible. You can't walk past a building and really understand, even if you work in technology, quite frankly, what everybody is doing, what their roles are, and how it feels to be doing that particular job. And this is then difficult when it comes to inspiring young people, because unlike what you might regard as certain tangible things like being a doctor or being a lawyer, it's quite hard to explain exactly what you do if you work in IT or technology. It's massively broad. And it's a shame, because there are just so many really fantastic opportunities for men and for women. And it's a pity that we seem to be so bad at alerting them to them. I think my own story is quite different, really, in that I joined Tomorrow's World to report on science and technology. When it first began, the programme was edited by men, directed by men, produced by men, presented by men. And if you look at some of the very early Tomorrow's Worlds, it's very obvious that that is the case. When I joined, Judith Hann was on the programme, and we had some of the strongest female producers and directors. And now, it's quite interesting, because I meet up with many women who say that it was watching Judith and I on Tomorrow's World, handling technology with confidence, not doing the thing which you often see happening, even on the news actually now, of going, you're going to find this really difficult, or this is really hard, but just being very natural, very at home with with technology, and that they, that was an inspiring thing for them, and encouraged them to go into this world themselves, which is a lovely thing to feel that you might have had some part in acting as a role model, because it never occurred to me at the time that I might become one. I think it's really important that we alert, whether it's young girls, young women, to the opportunities in IT and technology, mainly because of the way the whole world is changing. You can no longer sort of talk about technology as if it's in a little box handled by a department. It runs through every single aspect of our lives. If you think about the future, at the moment, the proportion of women working in tech is ridiculously small, and it means that we are depriving ourselves of a huge amount of talent. The fact that certain things will never be built or created because there weren't the right mass of women with the knowledge and skills to be able to do that is a rather terrifying thought, and it's something that doesn't have to happen, because we can change that. I think to date we've done a very good job of keeping a lot of technology invisible. It's quite interesting. I often use my own daughter as an example, where she now works in tech. She works for a software company. She's really good. She says that absolutely nothing she experienced at school gave her any indication that, first of all, she would be really good at what she does, and secondly, that she would absolutely love it. And so we've kind of got to unpick all of that. What is it that we're doing in the classroom, in the home, which is steering 50% of the population away from certain careers, or what is actually going on. And we know that parents are hugely influential in the shaping of career decisions of 11 and 12-year-olds. So maybe we should be looking at the parents rather than at the students. And maybe we should be looking at things within the curriculum that, for whatever reason, make subjects less appealing. And maybe we should just be very vocal about highlighting the opportunities. I don't think it's hugely helpful to constantly talk about, the real shortage of women working in IT, because I don't think that makes it any more appealing to young girls. I mean, it is very much about leading by example. I think role models, prominent role models, are important, but it's worth, I think, understanding that role models, they reinforce the decision to go into a profession. I don't think they necessarily make you change your mind if you're thinking about going in one direction. I don't think they can necessarily do that. So the question is, what does make a difference? And I was talking to someone at Network Rail. Now, in terms of IT, their department is very strong. I think they've got about 34% of women. You'd have to check the exact figure. But the point is that when you walk into that department, it's led by a woman. And any woman going in there for an interview, the career progression, the atmosphere, it's very visible. And that makes a difference. You can see that this is a place that is really walking the talk. I think perhaps one of the strongest pieces of advice I could give anyone is to be very clear and ask for what you actually want. Don't wait for someone to tap on your shoulder and offer it to you. Is ask for what you want, and if you feel that you could, you deserve a promotion, go and talk to your boss or your line manager about it. Think about what you want and then work out how you're actually going to get that. And I think at the moment many companies have invisible tripwires for women. They're not deliberately trying to prevent women being promoted, but that is what happens, or women decide to leave. And I think it really is about creating your own pathway if you find yourself in an organisation like that, and being perhaps bolder than you might think you need to be.